All right, everyone, this is Tim with Online Big Blue, bringing you the best in New York Giants sports talk and entertainment. I thought I would do a video this morning. I wasn't going to, but I was like, yeah, why not? Let's do one. We were waiting for this snowstorm that never materialized. So I'm sitting here with my coffee, and actually today's coffee is the McDonald's breakfast blend. You know, McDonald's makes a really good cup of coffee, and they actually make a really good coffee grind. So if you ever want to have another cup of coffee that's good besides Black Rifle, I'm telling you, the breakfast blend from McDonald's is a really good cup. But I want to talk about the Giants free agents and a possible trade. Giants trades over the years have not been spectacular. Many will point to Leonard Williams and saying, well, he's panning out, and that's true. But honestly, he has not been signed to a long-term contract yet. We don't know what's going on with that. So while that trade is becoming a win in the column for Dave Gettleman, if they do not find a way to sign him to a manageable contract, it's, you know, he's going to leave, and that's going to be that. And so talking about Leonard Williams, I was thinking, who is out there that we could sign or trade for that could potentially fill the Leonard Williams void and then still maybe even go above and beyond that. And then the funny thing is, I was talking to someone last night, and they were like, well, what about J.J. Watt? And I was like, well, J.J. Watt's 31 years old. He's kind of wearing out his welcome over, you know, in Houston. He had some injuries. He's come back from those injuries. He's played in full 16 games now twice in a row. So I mean, were his stats spectacular last year? No, he only had 5 sacks, 52 tackles. He is 2 years removed from his last big sack season, which was the 16 sack season back in 18. So, like I said, and that 31 years of age number is kind of to me, is kind of a turnoff. But then if you think about what value could he add to this young Giant team, and it's like, well, if you think about on his on-field presence, if you lose Leonard Williams, JJ is a perfect person to drop into that role. He can still play the run well, JJ Watt, that is. He can still rush the passer. He still has the ability to force fumbles. And one of the biggest issues with Leonard Williams is he doesn't create or generate turnovers. I mean, if you take a look at it, Leonard Williams has forced a total of, in his entire career, a total of 4 fumbles. 4 fumbles in his entire career. I mean, that I know he's the king of the Elmo sack, but, he needs to generate turnovers. And J.J. Watt has forced 16 fumbles. And I know he's played much longer than Leonard Williams, but J.J.'s got 2, 2, 2, 2, 5, 1, 1, 2, 1. So he's always forcing some type of fumble. He's always creating or generating a turnover. And like I said, he can play the run just as well, even at this advanced age at Leonard Williams. Then I was thinking, well, let me go look at the contract. And that's what really kind of sold me on the J.J. Watt thing. JJ has only got 1 year left on his deal at $17.5 million with no dead cap space, none. So, I mean, it's a kind of a win-win for the Giants because the Texans are going to want to get rid of him. He was running his mouth, the last couple of weeks of the season because of the fact that he's not happy. He doesn't think the team is being put together properly. So they're going to want to dump him. They're going to be more into a rebuild mode. So they're going to look for assets. And honestly, who's going to pay for a guy who's 32 years old right now, who's come off multiple injuries, and with a 17.5 cap number? And then I was thinking about it, you really could just slot him into the Leonard Williams slot in the salary cap. You really could. And it's only a 1-year deal. And I guarantee you, JJ would love to come to a team like New York. Not only the fact that it's an up-and-coming team and they have some talent, but because they also are in the media capital of the world. And if you've ever seen JJ, yeah, he's kind of a camera guy. He's kind of a big picture guy when it comes to social media and comes to advertising and marketing and everything else. So he would be a perfect fit not only for the team on the field, but he would be the perfect fit for New York. And I guarantee the Texans aren't looking for a king's ransom for the 32-year-old defensive end, soon to be 32-year-old defensive end. I mean, I literally bet we can get him for like a 5th rounder. And to me, 5th rounder, even if you're doing a 1-year buy with JJ, That's not a bad deal if you think you have an opportunity to move forward and try to get to the playoffs next year. He can help solidify the line. He can fill in the Leonard Williams role. He could probably generate more of a pass rush than Leonard. Leonard's, a lot of his sacks, if you actually go back, were coverage sacks. That's not a slight against Leonard Williams. If there's good coverage, somebody has to get the sack. But JJ can generate his own. And what would happen if the team start respecting the Giants' one player on the edge, and it turns out they double team him? How much is that going to open up the space for the rest of the team on the field? I mean, it's basically going to really open it up. I mean, so it's not as ludicrous as I initially thought. But like I said, that $17 million cap number doesn't scare me. And I don't think it's going to take a lot to get him. Maybe you give him a 5 and a 7. You give him a 5 and you give him a 5th rounder in 2021. And you give him a 7 in 2022. I know we don't have any compensatory picks this year, so I mean it's not like we have any extra picks to deal. But I think he would be a high risk, high reward player. And like I said, if you go halfway through the season and he's not working out, you can cut him because it's not gonna cost you nothing. Have a beer, don't cost nothing. And I think that could happen. The other player that I was thinking about another free agent we could possibly sign. And I'm focusing on the defense because we still have two major holes in the defense, and that's defensive end, of course, and the CB2 position. And the CB2 position needs to be filled. I mean, we can't pay Isaac Yiadom the money we're going to pay him, especially with the accelerators in the contract. And I don't want to go out and spend a ton of money in free agency. And if we do try to get a corner in the draft, even later in the draft, I still want to have a veteran presence. And then I was thinking Xavier Rhodes. Xavier Rhodes, of course, was a Pro Bowler over in Minnesota. He kind of had an off year. I wouldn't say he had an off year in 19, but he did not have a season like he normally did in Minnesota. So they released him, and then the Indianapolis Colts signed him over in 2020. And honestly, the contract that they signed him for was only $3.5 million or $3.25 million. I mean, now he's never going to be the guy that he was with the Vikings. He's never going to command that, that $10 million, $13 million salary. He's not that guy anymore. But you know what? He kind of refound his form in Minnesota. And one interesting thing I found about the way he played, when he regained his form with the Colts. One of the things I found interesting with him when he played in Indianapolis, he played a lot more zone than he did with Minnesota. And that falls kind of perfectly into Patrick Graham's defense. He's more of a, Graham plays more zone than he plays more man-to-man. And like I said, this was the first time in his entire career Xavier Rhodes played more zone than he did man-to-man. He only intercepted 2 passes, but that's fine. He only allowed a 52.4 completion percentage. And it was a passer rating of 84.6. And those are pretty much Pro Bowl numbers. Now, can he continue to duplicate what he's doing at 30 years old? Yeah, I think he could. And I don't think, like I said, he's not going to be able to get the contract that he got in Minnesota years ago. He's not going to get that deal anymore. He's not going to get that $49 million or whatever he got. He was I think his cap number, through the last 3 years of the first 3 years of the contract for $8 million, $10 million, $10 million. He's not that guy. He's not getting that money. But he is going to get more than $3 million. For a guy that could come in as a veteran presence, solidify the CB2 position, and fall into Patrick Graham's defensive style with the zone, he would be a perfect fit. And I guarantee if you even double his salary and give him $6.5 million a year, I would not have a problem giving him a 3-year deal, 2 years guaranteed, and then put all the money up front or even put some of the money in the back and kind of stretch it out. Because he would solidify the secondary. We wouldn't have to worry about the secondary anymore. I'm not looking for, someone said to me in Tampa once, it was funny. He goes, every fan or a lot of fans want to have a young guy at every position. He goes, but in reality of the NFL, that's not going to happen. You need veteran presence around your team and your organization. So, people say, well, you can't sign a 30-year-old. Well, even if he's a 3-year stopgap measure, you need to have that type of talent on the team. we could have probably eliminated some of those long drives if we had better secondary play in the CP2 position last year. And like I said, I think Xavier Rhodes fits the bill with that. And like I said, if you even double his salary and give him $6 million, think about that. You give him $6 million, you give him a 3-year contract, it's $18 million. I'm not talking about bonuses or incentives or anything. Guarantee the first year, he slides right in with James Bradbury. It's a perfect fit for the Giants. And again, this is Tim with Online Big Blue. We're bringing you the best in New York Giants sports talk and entertainment. And as always, if you can if you subscribe, if you're ringing that bell, you think what that means, that'd be awesome.